I'm Al Latimer, Director of the Office of Economic Vitality. Our presentation today focuses on how public investment in infrastructure supports private investment and how the two working together serves as a catalyst for creating a more vibrant and diverse economy in Tallahassee-Leon County. We'll take a historical look back at some major projects, we'll talk about some more recent projects, then we'll take a look ahead at some future development opportunities and possibilities. The presentation will also highlight the essential partnership between planning, blueprint, and the Office of Economic Vitality in facilitating development and economic growth. Now, let's join our panel.
Thank you, Al. So I'm Ben Pingree, I'm Director of Place for Tallahassee and Leon County, and I've got a wonderful panel here representing the three agencies that Al spoke of, that being Blueprint, the Office of Economic Vitality, and Planning. So very quickly, from Planning, we have Cherie Bryant, our Director. From Blueprint, we have Autumn Calder, our Planning Manager. And from the Office of Economic Vitality, Al's Deputy Director, Christina Paredes. So let's dig right in as to how these three organizations really work well together to create a sense of place and vitality and vibrancy in our community. This slide represents a little bit about our background. So City of Tallahassee, a local government, Leon County, a local government, not fully consolidated, but over the past 50 years, there are some programs and services that we've thought as a community, it would make full sense for them to functionally consolidate. The first one was actually the Planning Department back in 1967. The second one came about in the mid-'80s when there was a realization that we needed to focus on some of our major infrastructure. And that's when the local option penny sales tax came into being. That's the precursor to Blueprint. And that was the second one to really functionally consolidate when Blueprint 2000 formed back around the year 2000. And then most recently in 2016, the Office of Economic Vitality came into being. And for the first time, you saw that incorporation of economic development activities within the Department of Place that I'm honored to lead. So let's take a look at the history of our community just a tad. The next couple slides show you how we've grown over time and how some of the work that we do has helped lead the vitality and the vibrancy that's come about. So this is 1989. This is how we look both at the countywide level and also within the city. You see the city limits. And watch how they've grown upon the next slide. You see that growth, that expansion of the urban services area. And with that has come a need for people, goods, and services to move around, for those jobs that we've created to have office locations and people to be able to get to and from them, and also enjoy the wonderful natural amenities that exist within Leon County and the city. So back in 1989, these were the first projects for that very first local option penny sales tax that came into being. And really the trigger was an appreciation that we needed a modernized Leon County jail. That started it. But for those of you who've been in the community for a long period of time, just think back to what Thomasville Road was going north of I-10 before it was widened. Think back to what the old truck route was, Capitol Circle Northeast, or what life was like without the Blairstone Road improvements then leading towards the Blairstone Road extension, the Park Avenue improvements, and then the Orange Avenue improvements. Well, these were the first projects that came out of that, and this served as the precursor to Blueprint 2000. Now, you're going to hear about this during our presentation, but what you're going to see is when there's planning that's effectively done and when those major infrastructure activities happen, when we build those roads and improve those stormwater facilities and build those parks and those senses of place, job creation and economic vitality and development occur around it. And the yellow dots on the screen really indicate, when we look back to that first 1989 set of projects, all of that kind of vitality that sprung up around it. And you're going to see that more and more as we move forward through the program.
Thank you, Ben. The first project I'd like to talk about is Gaines Street. And here you can see in this picture, it looks like a totally different city than it did a long time ago. There were at the time crumbling sidewalks that were uninviting both to pedestrians and businesses. Remember this particular image. Christina will get back to it again in a few minutes to show you what it looks like today. Once the infrastructure was built, the private sector investment followed on its heels, but that didn't happen by accident. The planning department had worked well in advance of the road construction to make certain that zoning was in place that would support the pedestrian-oriented infill that was envisioned for the area. And then above and beyond that, we developed design guidelines in coordination with the business community to provide a clear picture of how development could support the vision by providing buildings that were attractive to both pedestrians and the private sector together.
Gaines Street is a great example of combining community involvement and cutting-edge placemaking principles to draw in private sector development. Here you see the public investment in landscape medians and wide sidewalks, but we also have public art and have incentivized brownfield cleanups, which draws in both businesses and their customers.
The first to come online in the Gaines Street area was residential development. This was quickly followed by commercial investment. You can see here the Residence Inn was the first one to come online in the Gaines Street area. Now, let's take a look at this image. You remember a few minutes ago, Cherie showed you that old warehouse located on Gaines Street. Now you're looking at a vibrant night shot full of vitality and activity. 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, this picture was non-existent. You can see just under construction right to the other side of College Town is going to be a Hotel Indigo there, and there are many more coming online. The Hampton Inn right here on the corner of Railroad and Gaines Street, this represents about $125 million of projects under construction right now in this area, and there's more coming. The Freight Line is coming online here, and so is the Publix Greenwise. All these two projects, which are in the pipeline, represent about $100 million worth of private sector projects. Let's take a look at this map. Right here, it shows you the private investment to date, which is about $300 million, with $125 million in construction and $100 million in the pipeline. The total cost of the Gaines Street project from a public sector standpoint was $33 million. Now you have an exciting place where people love to go and hang out after work and after school, and it's become a destination in our community and one that we are very proud to have.
Capitol Cascades Trail is a perfect example of how the community took another step towards implementing the blueprint vision. It includes stormwater, environmental cleanup, regional and downtown connectivity, placemaking, active living, as well as redevelopment within and adjacent to the public infrastructure. It doesn't get more clear than Franklin Avenue. There was a need along Franklin Avenue for basic stormwater, but Blueprint allowed the project to go above and beyond to add value and enhance the quality of life. As you can see in these photos, the Franklin Boulevard was dangerous and regularly caused property damage from flooding, but not anymore.
On Franklin Boulevard, Blueprint was awarded over $4 million from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development because this project cleaned up and cleared the stormwater flooding problem that we had. In fact, it removed 22 properties from the floodplain and finally released this urban corridor in order so that it could reach its full development potential. This is Cascades Park around the year 2000 before the construction began. And here it is after, the same shot. These are the two oaks in the upper part of the park, and here they are after the construction. Cascades Park is perhaps our finest example of an infrastructure project that took a single need, which in this case was stormwater, and overlaid multiple community benefits, such as walking trails, long overdue recognition to a neighborhood that was almost lost, and a gorgeous outdoor amphitheater. This project was years in the making, and every opportunity was evaluated to make this park more than just a stormwater pond. It's become a national award-winning destination, and it's not just that awesome park you take your out-of-town relatives to. It's become a catalyst for private investment. This is the way stormwater used to be carried through what is now Cascades Trail. In the background, you can see South Monroe. While the stormwater was conveyed, the people were not. There was no logical connection between the east side of Monroe Street and the west side. In this ditch, it was more than just a physical barrier between the south side and the downtown. And this is how we handle stormwater now. And this project not only carries stormwater, it carries people, bikes and vehicles, and buses. And as you can see here, the city's FAMU Way project is providing a new, beautiful east-west roadway. The places to hang out along the trail have created a new space between FAMU and FSU for exposing yourself to new ideas, and maybe you can even begin to see how you fit into this space. It could be renting a shop in Railroad Square. It could be running in the Tallahassee Marathon, which now goes along Cascades Trail, or it could be investing in the adjacent properties. And Christina's going to tell you about some of the companies that have already jumped on that opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Autumn. I always enjoy talking about this Cascades project. It has really meant a lot for our community, and there's a lot of future development that's really exciting to talk about. As Autumn mentions, the South Monroe area is poised for revitalization. You can see the sold sign here on this old cafeteria building, which, when redeveloped, is anticipated to have an on-site grocery and cafe and more. Across the street is Happy Motoring, which is slated to be redeveloped with a food truck-centric vibe. So we're really excited about all the different opportunities this South Monroe area can have. Once you're done here and have grabbed a bite to eat at one of these new developments coming on board, you can cross the Cascades Park Bridge that has over 400 people crossing it a day. This bridge is going to take you into the heart of Cascades Park right there at our amphitheater. It's home to hundreds of community events and concert series, and it's a huge draw for residents and visitors alike. Tomorrow, this development for North American property is going to be a game changer for the Cascades Park area. It represents a $132 million project that is being developed just on the edge of the park, so right behind that amphitheater we just showed you. This project is slated to have an economic impact of almost 3,000 jobs with a $353 million total economic impact. So let's recap this for a quick minute. To build Cascades Park costs about $33 million, so that's a public sector investment. It solves stormwater issues, it's provided recreational and entertainment opportunities. It's a key attraction for recruiting, retaining, and growing talent, and it's reaped a 1 to 10 return on investment. That's pretty impressive, and it's not finished yet. We're really excited to see what the future holds for Cascades Park and the development being done by North American Properties.
Now I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk about Capital Circle. It's a pivotal project which is a critical link to Southwood, state offices, I-10, and the airport. It's also a critical evacuation route. The backups, however, prior to the work on this road had become an impediment to both business access as well as to future business investments. Citizens expected something to be done. Like the projects we've already discussed, there was a clear need to do something, but Blueprint allowed the opportunity to do something much more than just the minimum.
Capital Circle has been the backbone of the Blueprint program since its inception. The forward-thinking citizen committee that envisioned Blueprint convinced our community that we could no longer build roads that didn't take into account future growth and our natural environment. Here we see a capacity increase of over 200% for 9 miles. That means adjacent development can be accommodated on this road for years to come, and we can continue to efficiently and safely move people and goods around our community. And we didn't shoulder the financial burden alone. Every $1 of sales tax revenues was leveraged by 3 of the state of Florida's dollars. And we got a multi-use trail and bike lanes during a time when DOT wasn't doing those things, and stormwater ponds that not only provide treatment for the road runoff, but have space for runoff generated by future private sector development. And Ben, you want to take us to the map?
I'll take you to the map. Thank everybody thus far. I have to say, what you've seen already, evidently, is that when we invest in ourselves, when we create these senses of place and space, and there were so many different photos I wanted to stop on and just really herald, you create those economic opportunities, but beyond that, you create a wonderful modern face, if you will, to this historical home that we share. You see in those projects the protection of our environmental resources. That's a tremendous attribute. All of these things work well together. None of them would do well or as well without the collaboration, if you will, and the intermarriage between the natural environment, quality infrastructure, and a focus on effective job creation and economic development over time. All right, so back to the map here. We start off where we left the 1989, the original, the precursor, if you will, to Blueprint 2000. And so let's see how we've grown a little bit since that point in time. These were the original projects. Next up, as you may recall, was the investment in Mahan Drive. And think back to what that is, you know, basically going from the downtown area out to I-10. Remember it as it was, similar to the truck route. It was only, you know, the two lanes rather, in many places. And so that was a huge opportunity. Gain Street, which we talked about, and that return on investment, you know, the low $30 million investment in that has already generated $500 million, and there's projects that are continuing to line up. We'll talk about that, but that was one of the next major investments of our community. Again, so these yellow dots indicate, and I just spoke to it in the case of Gain Street, the tremendous private sector investment that does follow, and it's proven, you know, really worldwide studies have been performed in terms of what effective planning is, and when you put in that high quality infrastructure and invest in your community, it stimulates that interest to only make it more beautiful moving forward, and we've seen that there. This next segment that just popped up takes you from the Capitol Cascades Trail coming down Franklin Boulevard, which we spoke of, and now wrapping into that by Lake Anita and crossing over the pedestrian footbridge on Monroe and moving down towards the new FAMU Way extension, ultimately going all the way down towards the southern part of our community. We spoke of Capitol Circle and how the widening of that, as we've picked up moving southbound and all the way around towards Crawfordville Road, and then also moving up from Orange Avenue north to I-10 interchange, what that's meant for our community. And we spoke a little bit. I think that it shows some of the Cascades Park development that's occurred. And then anyhow, that's the click I was looking for. You see in this representation all of the different substantial economic development that's occurred, from Commerce Park in the northwest to Summit East out east, where I-10 and Mahan Drive have come together. If you look back at the last 20 years and you think about the Southwoods of the world and Innovation Park and everything that's been done, there's really been game changing that has occurred because of the investments that you citizens, that we have made in ourselves and in the beautification and the preservation of what we have as we increase that capacity. And this last click just sort of highlights that this isn't the only thing that we've done to increase that the setting of the table, if you will, for a vibrant community. There's been substantial investments made by the county out at Appalachia Regional Park, the old landfill site, by the city in terms of the spray field and improving some of the wastewater treatment that's occurred, whether it's Fred George area development or whether it's acquisition of lands around the headwaters of St. Mark's. There's substantial focus also on our natural landscape, and that has also a tangible benefit monetarily in terms of economic development, clearly in terms of quality of life and enjoyment for our citizens. And this just sort of shows you a little bit of how taxable value has increased. That's a good indicator, a good outcome, a good result of what's happened in that 2000 to 2017 cycle. But whether it's $50 million in new taxable value at Summit East, $30 million at Falls Chase, $150 million stimulated private sector economic impact along the Thomasville Road North Corridor. We see these things happening all over our community as we do this in a logical, cohesive manner, but it's very exciting to see quality product come in. So what's up next for Blueprint? A 5-year look ahead. Turn back to my colleague Autumn, I think.
Thank you. As Ben mentioned, in 2014, the sales tax was extended for another 20 years from 2020 to 2014. Advanced passage of the sales tax referendum has been critical. It's allowed us to plan and design our 2020 projects so that when we start receiving funds, we'll be shovel-ready and capture today's leveraging opportunities. So let's talk about some of those projects that are already moving forward. The southwest quadrant of our community is poised to see some very exciting changes in the next 5 to 10 years. Let's start with FAMU Way. The city will make the connection to Lake Bradford Road within the next 3 years. Blueprint will begin the design for Capitol Cascades Trail Segment 4 within the next 2 years and complete this final project of the Blueprint 2000 program within 5 years. Capitol Circle Southwest, Orange to Crawfordville, the final segment of Capitol Circle that goes in front of the airport. Right-of-way acquisition has already begun on this final segment. The Department of Transportation has committed over $100 million for this project. This is the highest amount of dollars received from the state on any Blueprint project and allows us to reallocate the dollars that we had identified for this project to other projects in our community. We're proud of our partnership with DOT and see many more opportunities to leverage our sales tax dollars with their dollars. This fall, we're kicking off a planning study called the Southwest Area Plan in coordination with the Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency. This study will take a hard look at the significant roadway corridors in the Southwest District. It'll do a rigorous technical analysis and an intensive community involvement to identify the community's vision for the Southwest area. We know this district is a gateway into our community from the airport. So how can we best leverage and link our infrastructure to the development opportunities that are here?
And the airport represents significant development opportunities. You can see highlighted here are all the different segments that the airport has up, primed and ready for development. The Office of Economic Vitality is working closely with our partners at the airport to help market this land and engage with them in the development of a foreign trade zone, which would really open up commercial traffic in and around the airport. That, coupled with finishing the widening of Capitol Circle, will really stimulate economic vitality in and around this area, and we're proud to continue to work with the airport and the city on this project. Now, Cherie will talk a little bit about the Southside Gateway.
Thanks. The Southside Gateway is a little to the east of where we left off at the airport, along Woodville Highway. And it's a significant investment on the south side of the community. Design is already complete, and right-of-way is expected to start being acquired in 2018. As you can see from this slide, there are numerous potential lots that are available for redevelopment. What this could mean is that there's a lot of potential for new jobs and commercial activity on the south side of town in this area as a result of the investments on Woodville Highway. Mm-hmm. Also then, I'd like to move on to talk a little bit about the bike routes and the greenway system. This has, starting in 2020, a $1.6 million annual allocation to invest throughout Leon County. The bike routes and greenways, in addition to promoting healthier living, also provide economic benefits, such as ecotourism, as well as higher property values around the trails that go in. For example, realtor studies have shown across the country that property values tend to be about 5% higher along the trails. The bottom line, we've already put a priority on these trails and bike facilities and have been nationally recognized for it. Lafayette to Alfred is shown here, connecting two major trails. And if you imagine a system of trails like this throughout Leon County, infrastructure that's connecting one part of the city to the other and into the rural parts of the county, imagine the social and economic value that comes along with that.
This fall, we'll begin the planning and design for the first phase of Woolani Boulevard. Within this segment is a new I-10 interchange. We haven't had a new interchange since the interstate was built 50 years ago. Think about the commercial and residential opportunities that are created by a new interchange. Including the ones we've already talked about, we have 8 projects in planning, design, or construction today. Together, that's over $125 million into our economy. The prioritization process for the next projects is well underway as we make the seamless transition from the Blueprint 2000 program to the Blueprint 2020 program.
Thank you, Autumn. As Cherie and Autumn have discussed, the early passage of this sales tax has allowed us to get that jump start. This was made possible by the strong support from our community. Moving forward over the next 20 years, these 27 sales tax projects are anticipated to have a $1.2 billion economic impact to our community. And this impact does not take into consideration the private sector investment that we've shown today, which tends to follow these sales tax projects. As a community, we are all working together to move forward as co-creators to create a dynamic, vibrant, and diverse community that we are all proud to call home. And now I'm going to like to ask Ben Pringery to bring us home.
So what you see here in this last update is really sort of a harbinger of what's ahead. I have to give great credit to the Sales Tax Committee that under the guidance of our intergovernmental agency, that's the City Commission and the County Commission sitting together, they listed out 27 projects, cutting edge projects, the next round of major investment for us to invest in ourselves. And what you see on this slide and in this representation is a tremendous amount of geographic balance across our community for the next 20 years ahead. As we've discussed here today, significant work has already occurred getting ready for 2020 to come online and for us to hit the ground running. I hope what we've been able to share with you is that, one, we're working very diligently on your behalf to make sure that we preserve and protect the wonderful natural resources that we have, as well as focusing always on improving access to economic opportunity and job growth within our community. I think you see how planning, working with major infrastructure or blueprint, working well with the Office of Economic Vitality has already generated some significant successes. Those investments that we've made on your behalf, the citizens, under the guidance of our elected officials, they're already stimulating that substantial private sector investment, and they're also creating these wonderful senses of place for us to enjoy on the weekends or after work with our families, like Cascades Park, working our way down Capitol Cascades Trail. The bottom line for us is there has never been a more exciting time to be in the world of planning or blueprint or economic development, or really to be a citizen of Tallahassee and Leon County. We really encourage you to continue to stay involved over this next cycle, and we really thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the exciting things that we get to work on every day. Thank you so much.